Okay, here we are back to the base. This has been sitting aside now at least overnight for the resin to dry. So we can start actually taking it apart now. What do we do without painter's tape? Okay, there was a piece of my Lego let go. So we'll disassemble the Lego. I had a little bit of leakage of the resin, as you can see, so things are sticking a bit. And now we're going to peel off the aluminum foil. Between the resin and the paint, this does not want to come off. So we'll take our trusty scissors and we will cut it right down to the level of the, actually it might be easier to do with an X-Acto knife. I can find my X-Acto knife, there it is. Making sure you do not wreck your canoe in the process. Okay. Okay, well, we'll get off what we can get off, and the rest we will paint in disguise. Now, you're going to have trim all the way around the edge of this, so none of that is going to show. What you are going to see is your canoe. Now, we're going to take our major pieces that have to go on this base, and we're going to do some planning around where things are going to go. Okay. So we've got our cabin, got our outhouse, and we've got some trees. Now, I think I'm going to plant some trees back behind my outhouse. The trees come with a little thing that you can plant the nipple from the end of the tree into the, so they will stand on their own, so you can kind of decide where you want to put them. Of course, they aren't going to stand very well. This is just the planning stage right now, so we know sort of what we're looking at. And we have a couple of deciduous trees. Again, let's insert peg into stem. If any little bits like this fall off, just save them. They make good ground cover and things. So we'll put that over there between the cabin and the outhouse. My tree does not want to stand up. None of my trees want to stand up. And I don't really want to glue them in place right now. So we'll just, again, just estimate where things are going to go. And perhaps one last tree. Oh, ow. Over in the corner here. Okay, now that gives us lots of room to play with here. That's not written in stone, but where's our porch? There's our porch. It is going to go, not our porch, our deck. It is going to go about there. So having a tree close to the deck would be nice. You can do anything you want with the landscaping. The 4 trees and 1 bush came with your kit. You can add additional ones, and of course we are going to put the ground cover in. So this was just a planning stage at this point. And we are going to take our cover, because remember what I told you earlier, you have to stay a 1/4 of an inch away from all of the things. And look at that, the trees are exactly the right height. So, looking pretty good. Now, we also need to make some decisions around things like, do you want a path to your outhouse? Do you want furniture out there? I'm going to have a picnic table. It comes with your kit. I'll just... Okay, so this is all of the major components of your kit. You've got your lake with a canoe. You've got your outhouse. You've got a moose who's come to visit. You've got some trees behind the outhouse. You've got a fire pit. You've got a picnic table. On your deck, you've got a bench. You've got an Adirondack chair and a footstool. Now, what you're going to have to do is then try your plexiglass cover again. Make sure everything is in far enough. Doesn't matter so much about the trees, you can change those around. But particularly the cabin, you've got to make sure that the plexiglass lid will clear this end of the cabin. And you see it is actually a little bit tight. So I've got to move it in just slightly, like that. Okay, when you've got things where they're supposed to be, and you've got everything lined up the way it's supposed to be lined up, like that. Again, making sure that you're far enough back because there is a roof overhang. Don't work from the bottom. You have to work from the overhang to clear the plexiglass lid, to clear the cabin. Okay, and that is just about perfect. Okay, so once you have it all the way it's going to be for your main pieces, the bushes and trees and things, the landscaping is a movable feast. Take your X-Acto knife and scratch through the paint where your cabin fits and where your deck fits. Get rid of the trees. Okay. Now remove your moose and your greenery and scratch around where you want your outhouse to be. Now the outhouse is not as big a deal as the cabin itself, okay? So it can be moved later. You can barely see that, but there is a scratched outline now in the paint that shows where the outhouse goes. Just as there is now a scratched outline where the cabin goes. Okay, so I'm going to get everything prepared for the next video, and We will start our landscaping after we have done the aging of the cabin and the outhouse. So I'm going to set aside the base now that I know where everything goes, and I'm going to bring out my outhouse. It's tilting like this. My outhouse and my cabin. Now what I'm going to need is my dry brushing piece of stuff. I'm going to need brown paint, gray paint, maybe even black paint, but probably not, just a medium gray paint. And I'm going to put some out in my palette. And my brown paint. Ooh, it doesn't want to open. Okay, and my scruffy paintbrush. Okay, let's start with the brown and the roofs. Okay, now make sure you've got a very dry brush here, and use a very light hand. It's easy enough to take it off again, or to put more on, but it's very hard to take it off once you've put it on. Now you see, that's just make it a little bit dirty looking. Now the door, think in terms of where it's likely to be most dirty. It's going to be most dirty right around where the people use the handle. I'm just trying to get it to sort of look dirty here. You see, it's just kind of dirtying it up. Now you see, that is what happens when your brush is too dirty. It's very, very hard to get that to go away. You can vary it a little bit with a wet finger, but it looks very dirty now. Okay, again, getting it nice and dirty around where the handle would be. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of the gray now. Don't ever bother to clean your brush between processes here. isn't intended to actually make it any particularly dirtier, just to give a variation in tone. Okay, and there's our dirtied up outhouse. How much and how little you do of it is entirely up to you. Now the cabin. Again, a very dry brush here. Ah, did not want to do that. Okay, now a little bit of gray. You can always go back and touch up anything that looks a little bit too clean. Okay, that pretty well does the roof. When you look at it up close, it looks pretty grungy, but it's supposed to look grungy. Now we're going to do the walls of the cabin. Think about where it would get dirtiest, and it would get dirtiest down around the bottom, where things get spilt on it and kicked, and the runoff from the roof would collect around the bottom of the Yeah, I got way too much brown there, so we'll just try and... Oh God, now it's even worse. So, when we do something like that totally screws up, then we have to worry about how we're going to fix it. And what we're going to do... Okay, I'm going to try and correct this problem by using a little mudstone paint. Again, dry brushing it, but that's a much lighter color. And I'll try not to make that mistake again. Now remember, what we're trying to do here is make it look dirty. Make it look like it's been out in the bush for ages. Now it's also important that you do a little aging under the eaves too. Okay, and our last wall here. Feel free to brown up your fireplace if you want to. Okay, now let's shift to the gray. What this ends up looking like is very much a personal preference. There are some people that are sort of grunge experts. They can make things look authentically dirty. There are others, I'm afraid I'm actually one of them, where it's a bit of hit and miss. It's a bit of luck and a bit of trial and error to get things to look dirty. And of course we forgot to do under the eaves on the other side of the cabin. So let's do that now. Okay, and there's our finished dirtied up cabin. So, the next video will be about actual landscaping, but I think I'm going to let all of this dry for a while.